Alright, so again, if you have questions throughout, let me know. This is not a sit and get, this is like a collaboration. So I am going through my master's at University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley. I am in my practicum part, so my name is Josh Lamora, as you already know, and you can introduce yourself if you like.
Oh, Ms. Clark, 8th grade social studies.
Caroline Naya, interventionist.
Alright, so we have this whole session real quick, and we're going to be working together. Our purpose of this meeting is to analyze the school's social studies data to begin conversations and interventions before start. One of the problems that we've had in previous years is we don't start intervention until the curriculum says we have intervention. And as you see when I go into the data, I think it's crucial that we start hitting it now and trying to work it into the curriculum. Our goal at the end of the session is to be able to determine the appropriate interventions needed for the lowest performing standard. Now, I specifically target lowest performing because we're having 40s, 50 ranges, and everything else about 60 and above. There's still things that we need to hit, but I want to really focus, like this is the meat and potatoes of what we need to hit to make it successful. So this is us in the past 4 years. 2015, state, district, campus, all the way through. We scored a 44 in 2015. 2016 is 64, which got us the distinction, and then we lost it in 2017 at the 53, and this is what happened last year. We're at 37%. So we're below our lowest, and if you see district, it's kind of the same. We had a 2-point jump, and then state, district, we're about par. So this really concerns me, and this is, we started intervention 2 late last year, so I think that's one thing. And there's several other factors that go with this, but this 37% got us close to being IR this year, and there's other factors that went into it, but social studies did play a huge chunk. That's why when we're doing this project, I wanted to do it on social studies, just so that way we can figure out a plan and start working on it. So I wanted to compare, I know it's horrible to see now, but I wanted to compare us versus the other schools. Sorry. So we have this from just 2018. I didn't want to pull all the data out. So we have Travis sitting at number 1 from last year at 71%, and we're second to last at 37. Now, demographics is far different, but Days of Vala shares the same demographics that we do, and they're sitting at a 63%, which I project that these guys are going to score even higher this year, but there's no reason why we can't be up here. This is going to be a huge jump, and another goal that I want to kind of create while we're here is like, what is a realistic goal? Now, I know anything above 37% is going to be a celebration, but I don't want to go from a 37 to a 38 or a 37 to a 40. So hopefully once we kind of get into this, we start collaborating, we'll figure out what is a realistic goal for us this year for 8th grade social studies. As of right now, is there anything that's popping out to you guys? And if it's not, you don't have to.
I mean, just the gap between Bowie and us is just good Lord.
And looking at previous data, Lamar has been sitting around this area for the past 3 years.
Okay.
I believe they went down from a 38 to a 35 from last year to this year. Travis went up from a 65 to a 71. Days of Vala dropped, but they got a distinction this year, which Crockett didn't in social studies. So I'm kind of confused of why Days of Vala got it and not Crockett. I don't know if there was a particular area where they scored, but it was a distinction in social studies, but they had the same score as Crockett, so I don't know what the distinction's in. But even if we're, right here, we're just so low, like this is a huge gap.
Yes.
It's a huge gap. And again, last year there was a lot of factors that played into that 8th grade year, but to come out that low, I don't think that should have happened. So I pulled some DCA data. This is just campus alone. If you see, our students are still the same, so we're roughly around the same amount. They're both 15-question tests. This is DCA 1, DCA 2, and if you notice, we dropped from a 72 to a 57% satisfactory. One of the two reasons I was looking into this, I didn't bring any tests because I couldn't find DCA 1 and DCA 2 because we had to turn them in to get shredded. When taking it, I saw that there was two really kind of, if you will, colluded kind of questions where you could either pick this or this. And so a lot of students who score mastery or meets end up missing those two questions. So those two questions really threw off our scores. With the DCA 1, DCA 2, I mean, we dropped everything. We dropped 6% here, 10% here, and we scored pretty low in there. DCA is taken just in a regular class period, 15 questions. But, you know, we went from like 9 questions right to 8 questions right. So something happened here that don't really know what's going on. But then when we get our semester exam, which covers everything that we've done in DCA 1, DCA 2, we went up. So from DCA 2, we went up from 57 to 61. We got approximately 7% approaches, 31 meets, and 17% masters, and we still have around the same amount of students. So we're getting there. Don't know, like I said, DCA 2, don't know what's going on, but the semester takes the majority of our stuff, and so we can, from previous conversations with other teachers, that the semester exam sometimes can reflect into the star, but we still have to hit the ones that are really low. So what I want to do, I broke down the lowest performing TEKs by readiness and supporting, and I give you guys the lead forward. So what we can do, picture I'll give you one right now. I did not get through the processing standards, because those should be the ones we kind of incorporate into our lessons. So what I want to do is, if Fincher and I, if y'all want to look at the readiness, and then we'll look at supporting and kind of share out like our what's popping out. So we'll have supporting on the right hand side.
Already.
Is it a supporting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll change that. That 815 should be on the last one.
It's on the government.
Oh, okay.
That's a little tricky.
And see, I was looking at that, and then the supporting standard of the pupil. So if you look at 8.4B, if you don't know the pupil, and it goes through
Well,
that.
and I was looking at a lot of the verbs, like if you look at analyze, is on a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
was just
these.
looking at summarize.
So analyzing means you have to infer.
Mhm.
When you go to the reading test and look at where we score the lowest, it's on inference. So there's a correlation there. I think anytime, I mean, most of these are analyzed. So it's not gonna be what year was, who was involved. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
given this data, X.
Because it's even, when you look at like, the supporting, it's explain dates, explain individuals, so you're doing more than just identifying.
A date,
saying, this is-
absolutely.
This is that date.
And I think that plays some factor with what you're saying with the analyze. We have the document, because one of mine was the convention of 1787.
Yeah.
You know, we have to analyze this document, and you gotta look at it, and you gotta look,
Mhm.
oh, it says like 1787, so I have to analyze it, inference, that these group of people are in. So we got analyze, we have explain.
Identify,
Summarize.
summary's another, figure 19, I mean, it's just,
We have define, but 819 is pretty specific.
and give examples, that's, yeah, that's one of the easier of the. I think one thing that would be beneficial, and I don't know if it's me coming to one of the PLCs, is it would be interesting to see the correlation between some of these and how we score on STAR and reading.
Oh, yeah.
So like looking at inferencing, looking at, because I mean, I'm even looking, you know, like you said, 1898, defining of examples, I can give you note cards to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But if then they give you a question that says, analyze how the US Constitution reflects the principles, if they give a principle and then say, how did that, if you can't infer from it, the difference is, especially for history, you know, we teach the kids inference is text evidence plus background knowledge.
Right.
But when most of the text evidence is kind of, because
They may not have the text evidence,
Yeah.
because it's the fact.
It'd be interesting to look at the questions to see what kind of questions.
and that's the hard
How
part.
is it?
Were these, were they really wordy questions to where, you know, reading comprehension plays a factor?
I think most of our questions reading comprehension plays a factor, because even some questions we look at and we're like, how are they supposed to pick between these two answers based off of the way that question's
You know, we
worded?
have the audio for the second one,
Yeah. So,
just saying, even though we don't have the test.
no, well, this is,
That's
oh,
awful.
okay.
I'm just saying.
I think you're talking about this.
I'm just.
Well, but it's true though,
thought
cause
about
like,
that.
cause like, if I were to sit next to a student and I'm like, hey, what happened at the convention in 1787? Oh, there's when they grouped together and then, you know, but then when you put it in a
So they
thing,
have to read the question and then
Mhm.
take what they would know.
What I've noticed with kids is they can read you the question, but they can't tell you what the question's asking.
Mhm.
So whenever we try to do our do nows based off of those questions, I try and say, okay, now what is it asking? I know what it says, what is it asking?
yeah. And then we also, oh, you got summarize on that one.
Mhm.
But out of y'all that y'all looked at, was there anything that, like, besides the verbiage, like, things that popped out, like, oh, cause I know you taught history before, right, Naya?
I did.
Like, is there, when you taught history, was there, like, these certainties that they were kind of missing as well, or?
I find it ebb and flows depending on their background. Unfortunately, in elementary, if one thing is cut, it's either history or science. So a majority of their history comes from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade,
Or 10 minutes from 5th grade.
or 10 minutes from 5th grade.
Yeah,
And if
that's-
they don't get a strong foundation in those, kind of the things that I was looking at, it would be interesting to see, did y'all give a benchmark last year? Do you know if a benchmark was given?
Benchmark was given.
Was given. I'll wait till we get to kind of some solutions, I think, but when I look at it, I think it's, when I taught humanities and histories, we did a lot of tell-retell.
Mm-hmm.
So when we all did our tier 1 intervention and we all were regular classroom teaching, you would pull the kids that were consistently scoring low, say on 8.5E, identify the foreign policies of President Washington and Monroe, and explain the impact. You would tell it to them, they had to retell it to you.
Gotcha.
It's a method that's used in a lot of private schools that's really successful. I think question stems is one of the things that I would look into doing, activities with your question stems where they draw. But I mean, that's when we get towards, I think just looking at the data, I think to me verbs and the DOK is kind of where we look for,
Is
you
it-
know, but then I did notice there was one that I was like, oof, it was about math. It may have been, may not even
Was
been
it
one
that
that was.
analyze how, you know, sometimes it's like population distribution and economic activities?
Maybe it wasn't even one of the ones, I was just kinda like, oh my gosh. Because the unfortunate part for history is it's a reading test as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a reading test that you have to have.
The background knowledge to be successful,
Yeah.
because the answer's not gonna be in the text.
And like from my side, like looking at the sporting, so our first one is 8.1C, that is just, these are your dates.
Yeah.
But we're just explaining the dates, so like, this could be a picture, this could be a document, this could be just a blank question where you have to figure out, in Jamestown, because I don't think that we're ever gonna have a question that says, when was Jamestown founded?
Right,
Yeah.
So it's
but
like,
that's what they're expecting when we
Yeah.
talk about it.
and so, you know, taking 1607, like, what was a major, cause of Jamestown's failure in 1607? So we know it happened in 1607, but do we know what happened in 1607? And I think this year we did a good job on that, but looking at the semester exam, you know, we're not where we wanna be, but kids forgot, they've already forgotten. So we've done, I wanna say pretty, not a bad job, but we haven't done a good enough job to constantly spiral back. And so that's why I kinda wanted to do this and kinda come up with a plan now instead of waiting till April 22nd, where it says start day one, go back to the colonial era.
Yeah,
Because given the way we run our curriculum, April 22nd is probably not going, I'm gonna start my, that,
For sure.
per, you know.
Right. So let me ask you this, as far as, so, you know, two of the readiness standards, we're looking at, you know, the causes of the American Revolution,
Uh-huh.
and then, what was that other one? Identifying colonial grievances in the Declaration of Independence. Where do you think they're missing, where's the disconnect in the causes of the American Revolution and the issues that they had? Like, is it a specific area maybe?
I don't know if it's a specific area or because every time we get to a different era, there's a different war.
Right.
So these causes are different from that, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so when you have an answer choice where it's, you know, one of them was like the Civil War or something like that. It's like, there's so much information, you gotta be able to cipher through, all right, this is the key things that happened in the American Revolution. This is what happened during the War of 1812. This is what happened during the Civil War. And make sure the causes are all separated.
Right.
And then honestly, I think sometimes it's just fatigue. Our eyes are so tired of seeing text that you're just like, you know what, this sounds right, circle and move on. So.
because they think they've heard something about that already, and we haven't talked about it yet. Like, several questions say something about the Civil War, and they're like, oh, I know we're gonna talk about it, but we haven't actually talked about it yet, and so they somehow circle Civil War.
And then sometimes it's, you know, we hit specific, like, Battle of Saratoga, this is the turning point, this is what you need to know, but the next thing you know, you got the Battle of, Yorktown that's on the test, you know, and it's so hard, like, because these sticks are so broad, how do we target, like, they might know 7 out of the 8 causes, but that one that's not, they don't know is gonna be on the test.
Or in your 8-4B, there's 15 names there that
Yeah.
they may be tested on. that-
Or they may not.
Basic question, do you feel the curriculum addresses the TEKS?
As of right now, no.
Okay, so one of the things that I would do moving forward is I would take the TEK, I would take old tests, and I would look at not just how it's tested, but specifically what are they looking for?
Yeah.
And
so-
not just like the answer, but looking at it in the sense of, because one of the things in the PLC process that we talk about is, I may read 815C, identify colonial grievances listed, and I may teach it just as a list of grievances. You may read it and interpret it as, well, we've gotta look at the checks and balances, and may go in depth in each one, whereas I've just taught the grievances.
This is why they're mad.
And this is why they were mad.
And that's it, that's all you
And
gotta
that's
do.
it.
Yeah.
So there you're gonna have a disconnect, and as an adult understanding of fatigue.
Well, and I think
Right.
that's what we've been doing. I think curriculum teaches it, you know, this is the list of grievances, but they're testing it as in, why was this a grievance?
Well,
And-
and that's the second part of it, so if you only look at it
Yes.
as identify
Yeah,
colonial grievances that were listed, okay, well, boom, 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 I can name, you
All
know,
of
8 of them. Okay, well, how did they address that in the Constitution?
Yeah,
Oh,
and not dogging the curriculum, but
No.
But the way I'm getting to is the people that are creating it, it was from Travis, and you just saw that Travis is the highest. But that's because they know what they're doing with that material. For us,
Right.
you can type it up all you want, but
mhm.
you can, I'm not gonna read it like,
How are you?
how are
feeling
you
whole?
actually doing it?
yeah.
Have you reached out to Travis to ask?
So
him
I have
about
not
it?
reached out to Travis, so what we've been doing in the first part,
Borrowing steel.
what we've done in the first part is literally take what we could at the curriculum
Mhm.
and how are we gonna make it our own.
This
Uh,
semester.
So this semester we've changed it up, so that teacher workday, we sat in my room from literally, 11 to about, before you left a little early because you had your thing, but 11 to 3,
Yeah,
my whole board was covered, like, how are we gonna do this, what are we gonna do, what are our do nows, how are we gonna, and so we did it that way. But we did it so that we were all on the same page. We haven't taken a test on this to see how well it worked.
we do that Friday.
Yeah, we do that Friday, but we pretty much, how we're gonna teach it, how we're gonna do our little group. So we taught it all in 4 days. And then now we're about to go into stations where it's going back to the beginning, and we're already giving them text. And so they're starting to read a little bit more, but that's what was lacking in our first semester. Our first semester literally felt like, all right, today we're taking notes. All right, get out your paper, we're gonna take Cornell notes this time. All right, take out your paper, we're gonna make an anchor chart.
Yeah,
And so it just went that way. So now we're taking it, and we need them to be able to apply it,
Yeah.
not
to
just
not just
take the notes.
and put it aside.
So, I mean, a couple of recommendations I would do just from when I taught humanities and when I look at it, because it is a 45-minute block, it is much smaller than the 90-minute block that the core classes get.
Yeah,
One thing you can do is almost create your own block schedule, where Monday is you take notes, you do, tell and retell with a partner, you just wrote your notes, what did you hear, what did you see? Then that next period is stations, and like when I did math, or I did, one station was always your current TEAC. What are you currently working on?
oh, Ms. Haley did something like this.
Another station was always the most missed TEAC. So it is the, like, measurement in math, and you went back to it every single time, figure 19.
Yeah,
Another one would be a timeline, where you would give them the battle. They would have to, it's very interactive. You don't collect anything from there, but it's more of like, okay, you're right, we've got 10 battles. Here's the cards that go with the 10 battles. I need you to organize it. Take a screenshot of it with your iPad, upload it. You check it that way. And the next day when you did your block of talking about it, let's look at our station work. Okay, we had trouble with Saratoga. Y'all kept saying it happened, X, Y, Z. But you create where everyone's getting that tier 1. And I think one of the reasons we had a 37 is there was a lot of sit and get. And I think when you do that station and it's not picking up and moving, it's a series, it doesn't have to be, it can be. I think it's great if kids can get up and move.
yeah,
But if not, if you can create a review, a current, a you. So for example, my job in intervention, I'm pulling either my did not meets to meets to, approaches to, from there, you do the same thing. You pull your group where everybody else is doing, if you've got kids that are this far, then that's what you focus on, that's the group you pull. And you do it off of the most missed TEACs, and you do a hands-on activity, you talk about it, tell, retell. But if you can set it up in a way where they are hitting 3 times a week a station, I know it doesn't always lend itself that way, but when we taught it, because it was 45 minutes, we would do a block schedule of our own block. One day we did take notes, talk notes, tell notes. The next day it was stations off of those notes. Review station, consistently missed station, extra credit station if it's one of your honors classes. If they'd finished this, then they could do this. That way I knew they were getting it. They always had something that they had to give us. So like a snapshot of you completed it, upload it to, Google Drive, or a sheet that you did it. Another thing I think that helps is timelines in your room. Do sections when they take that test, which is hard, but the whole point of an anchor chart is you,
Well, you can have those color coordinated
by era.
timelines,
Timeline.
by eras.
Yeah.
One thing I would add
this is what we had
to the
last
stations would be like a closed reading
Mhm.
station,
Yeah.
because we know reading comprehension,
Yes,
doesn't matter the test, is a huge issue
Absolutely.
for all our students.
And to add on to that, like, not only the reading station, but reading at the level needed.
Mhm.
Because, we saw last year when we pushed in for our interventions, the reading wasn't matching the level of the star. It was like,
It's
this
gotta have that
person.
academic
Exactly.
vocabulary that's mentioned in the TEACs.
And I think
standards.
this semester we've done a better job because we've already hit, the students are knowing nullification crisis or in the spoils system, and then suffrage, they know it's not to suffer anymore, it's the right to vote.
yeah,
So I think
that was my favorite, what's suffrage? To suffer!
to suffer, yeah.
Like the
No, no,
man
no,
show.
no.
Yeah, so that's literally how I told them. I was like, so,
Yes.
when you get to college, like, there's people that do this now, like, where
Stop
they,
women's suffrage.
yeah, and so like they're gonna come up and say, like, do you wanna stop women's suffrage? And they're like, yes, I think they suffered long enough. And they don't know the vocabulary, so it's like, if I'm gonna keep teaching you, like, I do not wanna see you on a YouTube video later saying you wanna end women's suffrage. But we're hitting that, and I think we're starting to get the roll on things. It took us a while because with the new curriculum, it
Figuring
was
out what
really,
y'all can get away with,
yeah,
what
what
y'all
we
can
couldn't.
Yeah.
deviate from.
and we don't wanna get, you know, too far off the track that we
For
get in
sure.
trouble, but I think now we kinda got it going, got the train, you know, in the right direction.
Mhm.
And y'all have the classroom management. I mean, you have a team this year that,
Yeah, for the,
for the most part, stations can be successful. You have an off day and all that stuff. Another thing you can do for a station that would be in a class, but like you have kids create flip videos. Explain the
That could be-
timeline of this battle.
yeah,
And that could be your honors kids, your extension, like, hey, I need you to teach this flip video so that we can use it for another station, or, for another
Gotcha.
And
day.
you review it and the kids,
You can put that in your classroom
Yeah.
review folder, and, anytime they have time off, or hey, you want some homework, X credit, summarize these videos here
I
for me.
like that, a lot.
cause I've
Cause we
found.
could also take out
Mhm.
doesn't the library have stuff they could borrow, just in case, cause I know some of my computer.
I just did it on my iPad, to hit the record thing.
Yeah, but with some of them, like, if they wanted to do it at home and stuff,
Uh-huh.
cause some of them don't have,
So they
computers.
do have, yes, so we do have Chromebooks that they can take home with hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots.
But does the Chromebook have cameras? I
They can
think so.
they can upload it on their phone.
Phone, yeah.
I don't know.
But that was a good one, because like we found in
We'll figure it
math,
out.
if a kid can tell you, like if you say, create a subtraction problem, and they go, Clarky had 12 apples, her friend gave her 10 more, how many apples does Clarky have? You can't do subtraction. So if you ask them, so there's a list of grievances, they're listed right here. How is that addressed by the Constitution? And they can say, well, this grievance was addressed by and they have to tell it back to you. That's how you,
Get it going.
because a lot of our kids' notes is the goldfish. But we found when we did the hybrid, if you have to take notes, it's a skill that you do. You do closed reading, you do passage, you chunk the notes. But if you did that and then did turn and talk and made it more interactive, like I always like Shive's 10-minute thing. We're gonna take a chunk of notes, turn around and tell your partner about what you just did. Okay, back. Chunk of notes. So they get enough of that, but then I like it where we did a full day of stations. And we usually did, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, quiz on Friday.
So how, and I think we're about to go to that, but my question would be like, when we're still learning the new curriculum, like right now we're about to finish Jackson, we're gonna start industrial. How do you create that system while teaching new content, you know what I'm saying?
Cause you're a station.
Oh, okay, so you'll have industrial, oops,
And you can chunk it, so you take half of, say you've got a week's worth of plans.
Mhm.
You push the notes into the 2 days, say Monday, Wednesday, and this is just throwing it out there. You chunk those notes, then you practice Monday's notes on Tuesday. And you're pulling that group and you're listening, and maybe you don't have a test every Friday, and that's another review day. But it really just would depend on what your content was.
gotcha.
You could
And so
also
you
lean
can-
on Days of Allah, if we're talking about leaning on, Travis was high up there, but you mentioned Days of Allah is the same demographics
Graphics.
as us.
Mhm.
DCA's, we've been pretty close, they've got a team there that's been experienced, that knows, kind of where the holes typically are for the
Mhm.
students they have. You could
Well,
potentially reach out to them and say, hey, what are you guys doing?
and that's
It
what I
could be
missed
pretty
about,
similar.
that's what I missed about last year when we were able to get together for, swag sections. Because it's not only you're teaching us about the curriculum, I was able to communicate with someone from another school, and it was a lot easier. But just to show you the kind of a little different, but this is when we're taking the test, May 16th. So we're over here in January 28th, and so we have these 3 months, and so I wanna start interventions in February. Like, I'm not talking like full-blown intervention, but like,
Oh,
if A1C supporting standard is so low, it was literally, we had the 23% on that.
Mhm.
If we hit, Throwback Thursday or Flashback Friday, that is what we focus on, so like 1 or 2 times, a week, or we can do Flashback Friday on this way, and then Throwback Thursday on this one, where we're like, hey, remember what we did on Friday? Oh, we're back.
Yeah.
Because that critique was so low, 8.1C was explain the significance of the dates, 1607, 1620, 1776, 1787, 1803, and the Civil War Day, 61 to 65. That's a lot of dates, so if we can hit the ones that we already did, this can be the American, Jamestown colonial kind of thing, and then we can do the next one on that.
Right.
But on our curriculum, we have until April 22nd, which starts back colonial. And then this week is pretty much dead week because it's all-star. And then this is, want to say it ends on the 10th. So in curriculum, we go from April 22nd to May 10th of interventions, like starting back from colonial.
So 3 weeks.
So 3-week window. But again, we have,
There's also gonna be
we have-
interventions for other groups too.
we have fire drills, we have field trips, we have students being absent, we have
Towards the
teachers
end of
being
the year,
absent.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be really hard to squeeze colonial all the way to the Civil War and Reconstruction in 3 weeks. So I wanna come up with, and this is not to solidify a plan, this is not for us to say this is exactly what we're doing, but a realistic goal, how can we start putting interventions now and then hit this, so like, all right, we've already done colonial, we'll just do a quick, hit on when we get closer. So how would that look like? What would be more realistic without losing the content that we need to finish? Because Haggard says all the time, we push into the curriculum really fast because we need to get through the Civil War and Reconstruction, because that's also tested. But my thing is, if we're
Quality over
rushing,
quantity.
Exactly.
if we're rushing
I mean, it
100%,
sounds, based off, what Ms. Naya said, if you're breaking up your classes and putting them in blocks, you've got your lowest teak, the current teak, and your throwback teak. You can make that another station. Heck, if this is an issue, maybe it's the date card sorts almost with every group, so that by the time they,
See
come
them
around,
so
it's
many
boom, boom, boom.
Seems so many times you can do it within.
Mhm.
And part of that, my reason is I feel, and all interventions are planned differently. But right now, my schedule, I struggle with it because it's hitting everyone, which is phenomenal. The issue is, when you only do like a flashback Friday, it would be like your doctor telling you, Zamora, you need to exercise 45 minutes a week,
45 minutes.
once a week. And you're
Yeah.
like, ugh, that doesn't sound so hard.
Here's the results.
And so to me, if you can block it out,
Mhm.
and it may be something you have to discuss as a team, I'm happy to come help, and look at where you're not sacrificing that content,
Yeah.
but block it out that way, you're exercising weekly, multiple times a week.
So for like the card thing, we could start.
And it is just seeing it all the time and constantly, I really think for our kids, the tell-retell is a big deal.
Okay.
And it's, you do public speaking, somebody retells.
Janae Robinson, if you're in the building, go to the cafeteria, Janae Robinson.
That constantly seeing and doing versus just writing.
Mhm.
When you give tests, do the whole note card thing. I'll give you 5 points on a test, you get to bring one note card, you may not get to use it, but it has all the information that you think is gonna be on this test. They have to write it
We used to do that.
to do it. Now, they may not get to use it, but when you turn it in, you get 2 points on your test. So like little things throughout the week, but I think the thing with history, with our kids, it's gotta be so much exposure over and over again. Y'all are younger than I am, but when I did history, it was note cards, and it was rote,
Yeah.
and it was just constant, and it was
Yeah, note cards.
constant.
With math and history, that's almost what you have to do, because.
You have to.
Yeah, so
you've got
much.
So much
Christmas ads.
exposure.
Mhm.
And so then when you do have your eyeballs swimming, because there's 100 dates in front of you and 100 people, and hopefully that rote memory of you did that sort, you're like, oh, no, that was there, got it. And so it's just being exposed over and over again. And I would reach out. Dave Zavala is phenomenal with sharing information.
Yeah, so,
I will say for his extinctions,
I mean, they know what they're doing it well, and they're not trying to hide it.
yeah, so they're really cool. I've been in contact with Moss before, I can't remember his co-partner's name, but she's awesome. Well, and the thing about it, and I really hope I can talk to Mr. Clark to see if we can go one more time. Their styles of teaching are totally opposite. Andrew Moss, he is a storyteller.
Very engaging
He is,
speaker.
yeah, he is just like, you're sitting in his class and he's telling you these things and the kids are like, oh, it's this. Their gallery walks are amazing. Like, there's no, time, well, there's timers, but it's not like, okay, rotate. He was just like, all right, you have 20 minutes. And so the students will go from whatever ones to whatever ones. And the other lady, and I forget her name, she's
Much more structured.
structured.
Mhm.
So he's more laid back, but firm at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she is firm, but also laid back, because she's not, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. she's like, all right, this is the card sort, and she has a phenomenal amount of card sorting, so I need to find her name out and register her, because I think that is a huge thing that we need. All right, let me go. So, with the intervention plans, we've already kind of started talking about this, but I kind of broke it up into two things, like, after identifying our lowest and highest performing, because I still want to hit the highest in a way. I think sometimes when you put it in there, it's that confident boost, like, oh yes, I got this, because sometimes we always focus on the lowest, we have to, but I think they get so down and they're not getting it, and they don't know I think at middle school, the perseverance is not there, like, if I struggle through this, if I get to this, there's gonna be so much reward at the end. Our kids, and especially mine, if they don't know it, they shut down.
It
Gotta build
brings
them
their
up.
confidence down because they're like, well, and especially when they realize that it may be something easy,
Yeah.
they're like, how did I freaking miss that, you know,
Yeah.
and then they're done.
And so in this, I kind of broke it up into three. It's like, how would we differentiate the intervention plans to target students? Because, you know, what I'm gonna target for my first period is not gonna be what I target for my third period. My third period was 100% approaches, as far as my first period was like less than 40. So there's gonna be two different things. If my third period will be so fast and engaged, because most of them already know it, how am I gonna target my first period to differentiate from my third? How would we categorize students? This is the one I kind of wanna hit the most, and we'll go back to this one in a second. And then the second, create an intervention timeframe, which we kind of already did. And then how are we gonna assess that the interventions are working? Because I believe last year we were like, oh, we're doing interventions, and then the STAR came out. And we already, Fincher and I already knew like we should be doing more, and we did everything physically possible, but at the end of the day, when you don't know it, you don't. You didn't know it.
Ultimately, we talked about it came down to, it wasn't taught at the beginning, that's not the case here, so we've actually got
We have the
framework
foundation,
and the
yeah.
foundation there. Our interventions, you know, if we put into place, should actually
Work.
see some growth.
And so, how are we gonna differentiate, and I like what you were saying, like, we can do different things, but how would you do it for different class periods, if that makes sense? Cause you still wanna do the same concept, it's not like we're all the same, but pre-P for most of mine are way higher than my first period, so should I come up with two different intervention plans for it? Or should we do the same across the board and let them just keep practicing?
So, I mean, you can technically do the same. So like right now, we're doing main idea with sixth grade. So with my lowest group, we talk about what main idea is. We look at the anchor chart, we walk through it, we do Shrek together as main idea. As I go up to my higher group, I go, I need you to come up with your favorite game, book, story, whatever it is. I need you to write the main idea and summary on a piece of paper. Cannot say what it is. So then the kids are like, you can engage in two types of battles. You can pick your own armor. There have been multiple dances that have been created from this.
Fortnite.
And so you give just enough for them to understand that's a summary of Fortnite. And so they would go from there. So you can differentiate and scaffold within the same text.
Yeah.
It's how you attack it. My lower grades, my lower students, we say, okay, I need you to highlight 5 to 7 words that if you read them, that is the main idea of that summary. So it'll be like Zamora, history, Lady Bird, 8. Okay. And it may say Joseph Zamora was born in Bahia, Texas, So give you that. So you can use the same text, and I would encourage, especially using the same text, because we are on the second end of STAR. They will get 8th grade text for a test. That being said, I would talk to Higgy about 2 and 3. I do like how we created the buckets for history and math, for language arts and math. Once you give a benchmark, it will be a little clearer. I know people tend to not give it
Well, I think
early because you haven't taught everything. I'm more of a fan of getting it early because then you can look at, oh, this is something
So, The one debate from last year was, yes, we wanted to take the benchmark, but it was right after we took the semester exam. Now, when we were looking back at our data last year, comparing it to this year, my data was almost identical for my semester exam to what it turned out to be on STAR. So it's actually, I found it very interesting that, hey, this forecast this a long time ago, and it did for the other 2 teachers as well. Which is why we jumped in with the interventions right after the semester exam last year. We talked a little bit about when we categorize the students, you know, is there a chance that we could group the students together, even if they're in different classes? So like, hey, we've got our approaches kids right here that we wanna get them to meet. It's like, is there a way that we could potentially group them together and have like a rotation so that, you know, you're not working with just one necessarily group of kids, but you're not having to scaffold as much for the different levels.
Yeah,
Or like if we took some of your approaching and some of my approaching.
And as long as y'all teach at the same time, it's great. ELAR, it didn't work because we all have PLC at the same time, therefore our schedules.
Right, and it's a little bit trickier,
'Cause
with
fourth
y'all, so you
period-
guys
We
both on
both are.
fourth period, we talked about pushing in with.
But if we do the
Other-
PLC flip, like we did last year,
Mhm.
our PLC can be our conference and our fourth period can lead to help Phillips.
Right.
The other thing that I think was really beneficial, and I think it would also work out with history as well as science, is once you have those kids from your semester exam, you look at cut scores. And you look at, had that been star, and it was very similar, where did they cut? So then you look at, if you've got a kid that's in the second percentile, okay? We got a long way to go, we want growth.
Yeah.
So that would be one bucket. Then you start looking at, okay, if we've got a kid that hit masters and they're killing it, I need to keep that kid there. And so you start looking at, in class, everybody gets tier one. But then during your PLC or whatever, if you took your off period or you did whatever, that's where you focus on, these are our approaches that are this far from meets. We're gonna push. These are our solid approaches. We just wanna keep them there. If they hit meets or all of a sudden fly to masters,
Awesome.
awesome. Like you don't ever,
So
but
the debate for me and Higginbotham was supposed to be here, but her child got sick. But the categorizing, because there's always that craziness, like if you do a homogeneous, like this is everybody, all the approaches are gonna be together, all the meets are gonna be together, all the masters. But then you have the benefits of the heterogeneous where I got a master with a meet, so hopefully the master will stay a master and get the meet still a master. So that's like one thing I wanted to kind
How
of.
people normally do their seating charts is you put someone who's low performing,
Right.
and someone
Yeah.
who's high, and hopefully he or she can get a little bit.
So I just want to get y'all's opinion on that.
Yeah, and not limit.
Yeah, because there's been
yeah.
pros and cons on both.
Yeah.
Right.
I will tell you, DZ and Travis, their interventionists work with history and science.
Yeah, they do. We met her last year.
Yes.
They work a lot with them.
And so I talked to Mr. Clark, and I don't have a specific date, but I know after April, when the first round of STAR test, he said he's going to let us have one. Don't know who. I don't know if it's actually going to happen. But if it does, that just helps us a lot, just to have one. But
Yeah.
you know, from the perspective of being an IR, because social studies just, no, I'm not saying it was just social studies, but
No, yeah,
It
played
hurts a
it
lot.
hurts, yeah.
We dropped from 60%
20 some odd.
to
Yeah.
37.
So I'm just like, how do we make this urgent enough and not put all the pressures on the teacher? Because right now, you know, Clark being a first year teacher, here, it's a lot of pressure, and then you have Phillips who's been in the game for so long, you know, and she's doing a really good job, and then me, this is my first year ever teaching the content. It's a lot, and so that's why I kind of wanted to hit this for my project, because one, it needs to be discussed, and two, now that we kind of get the ball moving in our POC, we can start actually implementing what we're talking about here right now. So, it's a lot.
Looking at B, I think you will have a better time assessing the intervention if you did do like a station or
Yeah.
a block, because you will get the feedback. Reading how it's so hard is I'll have a kid that's killing an expository, and then I give them a narrative, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. And so you're just like, or,
But
you know.
do you freak out? Because in my mind, like assessing, I'm thinking test. So I didn't even think about the station idea, which is great because like you can tell from right there, you get it or you don't. But like when you take, let's say I take a little five question quiz and I have a class period who just totally bombed it. So does that mean my interventions are not working, or how do you go back? Because once you get that time crunch, like you just can't go back all the way back to, you know, colonial era. I keep going back to that. But so I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts in my head, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk it out and try to get an idea so where we want to go.
I also think open-ended, I'm not a big fan of the multiple choice because you just pick one. And then
Yeah.
somebody goes,
Hopefully,
it's
I think
wrong,
that's
so you
what-
pick another one, and then you pick a third one. So one of the things that we do for our very low kids, and you can do it for high kids, is we will give a reading passage with no multiple choice answers. What can you infer about Zamora's trip to the grocery store after work? They have to write an inference. Then you give them the answers. And one of two things happens. My answer is not like any of these, because it's not close.
Yeah.
Or they're like, oh. And it's getting them, and to me it goes back to the tell and retell. If you can have a kid explain something to you, they get it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I, for your lower kids, would do that. I'm gonna tell you, use your story taking skills from that Days of Allah teacher. I'm gonna tell you the story of 1812. I need you to listen. Blah, 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 blah. Tell it back. And you tell them what they're gonna do. But for those low kids, seeing you and hearing it is different than looking at it and copying it. And sometimes they have to retell and tell multiple times. But it's a powerful way for them to, they're hearing it from you. They're hearing the influence, they're hearing all these things. I also think you'll be able to assess it in the sense of, for your high kids, when you have those stations, you have interventions, have a contest. Who can do it the fastest and take a picture? Then you've got these kids that rote memories kicked in. They're like,
Knocking it out.
and you change it up, because you use the same cards. You know, I mean,
Memory.
That's almost like, you know, some of Sheridan's stuff that he does, some of those games.
Yeah.
It's
The,
super competitive, the Jeopardy,
The quizzes relay. Did you hear about that one?
Now, it's pretty fun to watch. And the way they've got buttons and everyone's all on edge and,
Was
yeah,
it-
so it's
yeah.
fun.
And I think you can assess in a lot of different ways. Like, to me, one of the things that I like to do is create Google drawings, and it's a drag and click, and you have to put it, and then you just look at it. So it doesn't have to be the multiple
So like a
choice.
matching, is that what you're
Yeah,
doing?
you can do anything on it. And so like I would create, if you said what were the causes, and you put causes, and you have 30 things, and they have to weed through and actually drag in the right ones, and that can be a station.
And what do you do in them?
Google drawing.
Could you show us that?
I would love to. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
You got
Because we do it with
Learn
plot
so much.
diagrams. So what I will do for my low
Yeah.
kids, we have plot diagram, and they understand the plot diagram, climax, rising action. So then I put all the answers. I'll put it on there.
And
So they have to drag it to the right spot, and if they get it wrong, I'm like, okay, so the big bad wolf, eating the little pig, that was the exposition? Was the beginning of the story? They're like, no! Okay, where would it go? What would be the resolution? Well, it would be following action, because in the end, and you're like, okay. So then you have that conversation, but they have to drag it, and it's not a just pick, they have to do something.
Yeah.
You could create a timeline in Google Drawing, and they have to
Yeah.
bop the stuff where it is. You could, if you're worried about them separating the eras, you can create one that's got 3 different eras, tons of battles, put them where they go.
We'll see, right now, the way I redecorated my room, because my poster was very, very, but I have colonial corner,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where all the colonial stuff is. I have the revolutionary on my back wall, so I have the causes. I do not have the wars up yet, because I have to sort through them again. And I have the revolutionary timeline, I have a constitution corner, and then the 5 presidents, which we totally go back on. And now that they can literally repeat all 7 presidents now. But now I have to take that and talk about Washington, farewell address, John Adams, XYZ affair. So they get that they go in order, but now I got the skeleton, and now I gotta put the meat in there. And it's helped a lot, because when I ask a question now, it's like, let me look around the room and which corner am I supposed to look?
In that corner, you can do visuals for the significance. So like if it's a president, you put a head silhouette. If it's a war, you put a exploding asterisk. So it then creates a visual for it for those kids that are like, all I see is a bunch of dots on a timeline. Whereas if they see a head, that was the president at the time. They see an exploding bomb, that was a war.
You could also do the silhouette of the head, and then, I know it's a little bit much, but if you get those,
You get skull and crossbones when they died. I mean, we put all sorts of.
That's on the.
Velcro thing, so like, let's say it's a silhouette of, you tell me what the silhouette should be. So you put all this stuff, so I should see like farewell address, first president, and then your partner has to guess, all right, this is the silhouette, who should this be? And it's George Washington. And then they set up the next one, or something like that.
I mean, it's kind of like, we had the idea we were gonna do the Guess Who game with.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
You could do heads up, with you know, the categories and maybe, you know, like some sort of review station where they go over, okay, you've got George Washington and you have like the, you know, the things that they need to, the characteristics that they need to know about him. You mentioned Adams and XYZ affair, you know, you could have them like review that and then eventually do like the heads up games where it's that rope memorization.
Yeah.
And I
You
think,
could do the exit ticket,
mhm.
you know, if you've got just a couple minutes, you could almost just throw out a person or a place and they have to stand up, hey, which era is that? Stand up Revolutionary Wall, Colonial Corner.
Like 4 corners, walk to the
Four
corner.
corners, but have it done with eras.
Walk to the
instead.
corner, put your
It's
nose
like,
in.
Yeah.
I'm George Washington, do I go to Constitution or do I go to?
Well, and then so it, you know, are we talking about, you know, during the revolution or is it, you know?
Yeah.
I would first look at your curriculum and see if a block schedule would work for you.
I think
If
it
you
would.
did chunk notes,
Yeah, cause I mean.
cause you don't wanna
when
beat
you did
yourself up trying to, the other thing with stations, you've gotta make it meaningful, but make it something you're also gonna look at.
Yeah.
Like, don't give a ton of worksheets and folder work that you know you're not gonna grade.
Yeah,
But if you can make it interactive and you can change it up and you can, you know, and there's a ton of, like I made a folder, an intervention folder with history stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Look through it because Teacher Pay Teacher has a ton of free stuff
That's what
that's already done.
But I pay for it.
But, I mean, but
I
there's
get
a
all
lot of
the
stuff.
I still have it on my computer.
I can help create stuff, cause Friday we are pushing into another class, but I still have a couple of periods that if I needed
And
to.
see, what's cool too is I got Winfield student teacher, and
Mhm.
he's been my first period, and I put a group of boys who have not been performing well with him, and he's getting them going. And then I just got a new student who doesn't speak any English, and then now I have a student who, he does enough to pass, but not enough. But now that he's helping me translate to him, he's actually working, then translating, and then they're both working now, but he doesn't know that he's doing his work. So,
I have
and
one
it's
of
only been a couple of days with him, but it's been cool, cause now he's like, today I asked him a question, he was able to answer, he's like, I asked him, I was like, the spoil system, what did you draw? He's like, that's when he got all his friends and family, right? I'm like, yeah, I was like, well, it's not family, but
Love that.
supporters. So it's cool now, cause now he has a job to do, and he feels valued, so, and then he has a little partner in crime in there, and so it's kinda stopped that, and so that's been really cool. So I'll get with Higginbotham and try to get with those two, like, I was really hoping she would be here, cause the categorizing of students is something I'm still kind of like, what do we do? Do we incorporate all 3 teachers and we split it up that way? But then, my worry is, if she's had a relationship with this student, now culture shock, you're with Coach Warren today, and then, culture shock, well, I'm with Phillips, and Phillips doesn't do what Clark does, and Clark doesn't do what Warren does,
Yeah,
which technically we all do, but we
Agreed,
have a
but
different
ways.
style.
Different ways.
yeah.
Yeah. So now, we kind of, a little reflection, we've done a good job talking about it, but like, now, is there any kind of reflection that you guys have over this,
I
or?
want Miss Maya to sit with me in class every day.
I will. I would also cross-reference your kids that are not doing well with their star reading.
And
Just-
that's
just to
so-
get a-
So will we get that from who? We get it from Higginbotham? Or
So
we get it
I can
from-
work with Higginbotham, we can work with VLC.
I can run you reports for 8th grade.
Would there be any way we can, because I like what you said, like, if we're having a hard time reading and analyzing and inferencing, we're gonna have a hard time in social studies analyzing and inferencing. So is there a way we can pull like, I know it's probably a lot, but find out the questions that they're missing to figure out, are they missing the analyzing and inferencing? And if so, how can reading and social studies work together?
You
Because-
can do that. If your test isn't aware, it will pull the TEKS. You can pull it up in Eduphoria.
Yeah, I got social
Just
studies.
click on that one, but we can do that in
For
reading.
reading, okay. Cause
And
like I
he
said,
can get you that.
if we can work together in that intervention day, like, hey, we're teaching, we're reflecting back on the colonial day this day. And if they're having a hard time inferencing, we can find some kind of reading that reading can do to kind of
Well, even
help
with
out.
those, you know, the closed reading that we talked about, you know, at the beginning of the year in PLC, you know, we don't need a big old long passage.
Chunk.
We
Just
just,
a
I mean,
paragraph.
almost even, you know, we talk about reading, just find, you know, those lengthy questions
Mhm.
that the kids have, and boom, just kind of have them almost go through that, just to see the vocabulary and try to get them to use the strategies that you guys have taught.
Anything else?
If you have expository text from your book, if you'll give me a book, one of the things we can do in 8th grade intervention is take star question stems and use your text as a nonfiction.
Oh, speaking of, on the intervention days, just to bring it up here, how do we feel about that boot camp week we did? Should we try to continue, or, because if you remember last year we had,
was not effective, but it was because it was never taught,
yeah,
and so,
but then do we have enough hands to teach it? 'Cause that
so
was
I
another
talked
part.
with Mr. Clark, like, I would have no problem, and he was okay with me being able to jump in and
Help
be
you
with
out.
you guys, you know, I mean, maybe not, you know,
Stationary,
every day.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do think we could pull, enough people to.
But,
Emilio
yeah, and I
Rosales,
think
if you're in the
you
building,
and
come to the
I
front
said
office.
another-
Emilio
I said a
Rosales.
lot of good things, but like, the other good thing was, I don't think last year's boot camp was meaningful. It was like, here's a stack of cards in an envelope, go at it. And so that's like, that should have been done in the classroom. We should have had something like, all right, we
Those
need
are
to
the
get.
stations that we have
Exactly.
in the classroom.
So we made a station in the boot camp, which is great, but it was hard to do because we have all these, you know, we have too many students in one area. Fincher and I were, so boot camp was, we took a week off and literally,
We had basically, so there was testing, something.
there was the retest. So they have a retest.
week.
And so the students that we have, we took a whole week off, or a whole week, and we categorized them, so one day we'll focus on this group, this group, and this group, so they'll go with Fincher and I, we did the revolutionary battles. Once they're done with us, they go to the next station. It was pretty much a
We
big
had Mr.
station.
Cummings, we had Ms. Phillips in her role,
What if we, this is way out there, Clark would have to, but what if after first round, where we continue as normal until we get scores back, what if, this is probably gonna be a big no, Pride turned into science history?
I
I've
would
talked
love that.
about that before as well.
You know, and just till scores come back, and they can go back to, you guys gotta pass, I'm
Well-
sorry, you're yanked,
And you know,
but like,
interesting,
Because you
so
can't
one
really
thing we
do
could
anything,
do
like,
is.
we're reading through,
Well,
those
so
reading.
do the reading and just, but make a history thing. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's gonna be the same kids,
It
you know,
will,
for the
Yeah.
most part. So,
I
I mean,
like
we
that
could
idea.
shift the reading, you know, just to, you know, not necessarily knock the stations that we did last year. Just throwing this out there, you know, one thing that I think was frustrating for us is that we weren't reteaching them anything.
We
Like,
had to
we
sit
were
and teach.
literally having to drag them to the answers because they had no clue.
Mhm.
And then
You
there's
know,
also
card
days that
sorts-
we actually stopped and taught.
And we just taught. The card sorts would be 10 times more effective
If it
because
was-
they know the information. So instead of like, oh, wait, you don't know this? And, you know, them getting beaten down because they have no clue.
Yeah,
I do think even, like, I get what you're saying with they need to be more personal, they need to be more meaningful. But I do think they would be more effective this year because the kids actually have a baseline of what
Mhm.
Yes.
to do. And it wasn't just like going from station to station, like, well, I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know this, so wait,
Yeah.
why am I here?
And then when they got to the test, it was like, so,
Nope.
that was the fastest.
And then for your
Fastest
really
test.
high classes, to pull something from the old PBL book, have them create review stations.
Well, so that's what so.
You make one, bring it in, I will check it for accuracy and factual evidence,
Mhm.
and then we'll play
And
it.
so, I mean, you could totally do that right now with some of your
Mhm.
super
Yeah.
honors kids that you know that you can trust and say, hey, so-and-so, I need a lesson over the causes of the revolution. And then maybe give them one or two ideas and say, hey, doesn't matter what it looks like, I just need a lesson from you. We might use it in your.
How would they feel,
I have
and
I have a couple who
with
actually
this one,
do that.
how would they feel if we were to do that and use that, you know, as a grade, not besides extra credit, because if they're gonna be putting a lot of work in it.
I mean,
could
you
we
can totally
do-
do a
And it
project
is a
summer
grade.
grade.
Yeah, I was saying,
Like,
but
if
if,
you did like a some, you know, by the end of the second semester, I need everybody to contribute something to a lesson. And if you do, you know, X, Y, Z,
Think about the way that we did our, semester exam last year.
Mhm.
You know, if we kind of gave them a menu of review, like, and then the kids that you know you can trust, maybe don't necessarily give them the menu, you say, hey, let's try to
Choose one of
focus on
these
this
five.
area right here.
I'm a may do and a must do.
Cause I think it's kind of fun for the kids, I think a lot of them, and once you give them the menu, it's just like a sentence stem almost, you know, like, oh, well, you know, I could do that, you know, just a card sort, I could create that. Even for your lower,
Create flippity cards
Okay.
online, create,
or your
there's
drawings, you
so
know,
many.
you could,
But I think that's the other thing, like, we're so closed off on all the awesomeness that's on the internet. Like, some new thing that we just learned from Mr. Clark, Justin Clark.
If you didn't ask me, I could.
I know.
What was it called? Nearpod.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nearpod. I love that because now you can do the questions all right then and there. And then the Google drawing, maybe if we pull a day for POC, would you be?
Yeah,
We have a second period. What will be a day that you could do that?
probably Friday.
Friday? Okay, we'll talk and
Yeah.
I can set something up. Then last but not least, again, our goal was just to start the conversation of interventions and how we're gonna implement them. I think we kinda have a really good idea of what we wanna do. So now we'll take this and I will use this during POC. We have a lot of notes taken and come up with a solidified plan. I would like to start February with the minor stuff. So if we do the station idea, we hit that, 8.3A or 8.3B, start hitting that now and maybe start come up with flashcards. I'll get a hold of, Days of Allah. That'd be also really cool, and this is probably far reach, but if we can merge with Days of Allah at some point, like, if they're doing a really good job with the masters, like, have a day where I get some of my master students and their master students and kind of like work together on some major project or something. Just so it's different.
FaceTime, yeah, Skype.
Yeah,
I was
Skype.
say, if you could do that
Sounds a little
virtually,
sketchy right
because
now.
physically, I don't know
You will
if
hang.
anybody would go
Well,
back.
we just be like, hey, Days of Allah, we'll take your approaches. You take our approaches, we'll take.
We'll take your
Nah, just
masters.
like-
Say they're not gonna do that. I
Give
think
us-
they'll
give
share,
us
but
this.
I don't think they're doing that.
But any other questions or
I think you've got a great plan, I
Let
think
me
it's,
know how I can help.
yeah.
Alright, well, I appreciate you guys coming. I
Absolutely.
really
You can come
do
sit in my class
appreciate
if you
it.
want to.
Yeah,